Thank you for joining me. And as we move into the next chapters, we can see that Father Jay's journey gets even more interesting. In the previous chapters, we learned that Father Jay was having premonitions through his dreams. And if his daily duties weren't enough, he used his evenings to do rescue work by ministering to dying souls, both Catholic and non-Catholic, during out-of-body experiences at night. Then he earned a doctorate in metaphysics or mind sciences called psychorientology and taught a course called Silva Method of Mind Development and Stress Control. My father and I took this course in 1981, and I did a refresher course again this past year. And finally, in Chapter 31, Father Jay meets a Buddhist monk called Mahinda, who understands Father Jay's spiritual journey and is able to help Father Jay understand his cosmic experiences. And then there's the miraculous escapes from 2 car accidents, which reinforces a powerful affirmation of divine providence. We only leave this world when our mission is complete and not before then. If you missed any of that, please go back and listen to chapters 29 through 31. And now that we are all caught up, let's see what comes next in Father Jay's life. Chapter 32. Experimenting with New Principles. After about a year in Pontiac, my associate and I decided to put up a fence around the backyard. It would give us some privacy to sit out there and read, given the time on a pleasant day. And so we did. I had never tried my hand at farming, but I went and bought some starters for tomatoes and some seeds for cucumbers, radishes, carrots, and other vegetables. When it came to corn, I wanted to try an experiment. I had bought a tiny 6-inch pyramid. It was made of firm cardboard that folded. The dimensions of this tiny pyramid were the same as those of the Great Pyramid in Giza, Egypt. According to Dr. Thompson, an expert on the Great Pyramid, the shape of the pyramid itself is a cosmic form and affects objects in it. Perishable food will not rot, only dehydrate. If you have ever smelled a rotten egg, it would send your nostrils reeling. That doesn't happen in a pyramid-shaped form. Eggs and tomatoes dehydrate. Perhaps that is why mummies are dehydrated. It also has some interesting properties, according to Dr. Thompson. Seed placed under it are energized and grow bigger and better. That was my corn experiment. I placed 20 kernels inside the tiny pyramid and 20 outside of it. The next day, I planted them side by side, one row energized and the other not. The old saying, knee-high by the 4th of July, turned out to be a joke. On July 4th, every single energized kernel became a stalk easily above the knee, more like up to the hip. The other 20 had several barely up to the knee, with some kernels not taking root at all. It was strange looking at the 2 rows. One looked almost sickly, and the other utterly amazing. My brother Tony claims to be able to use the same safety blade for shaving 20 times longer when placing inside a pyramid form. If there is any truth to the pyramid theory, how did the ancient Egyptians acquire such knowledge, thousands of years before Christ? The yard produced vegetables for us all summer. At the same time, it helped to keep our food budget down. One day at table, Jim and I were discussing the possibility of getting a dog, now that we had a fenced-in yard. I said, let's use one of the programs taught in the mind development class. We then visualized someone calling us and offering us a dog. It usually took anywhere from 1 to 21 days for the program to manifest in our life. 1 week later, I got that call. One of our parishioners had a puppy and wanted to offer it to us. I said, fine, we would be happy to have a puppy. I was going to add, what took you so long? I thought I'd better not. We already named the dog before we got it. We called the dog Chris, short for Christian. Whether it was male or female, Chris happened to be a female. The dog was half African Basenji and half bird dog. What a hunter she would make. Basenjis are raised in Africa specifically to kill rats. They can smell them out and kill them in a bloodless manner. Add the bird dog instincts to Chris, and you've got a hunting dog plus on your hands. We were plagued with mice in the old parish house at that time, but not for long. Chris killed about 10 of them in a few days. She would kill a mouse, then drop it in the middle of the floor. It was then up to us to dispose of it. Soon the word got out among the mice, and we never saw another mouse in the house for the next 5 years of our ministry there. One day while at dinner, it was just a couple of days after Chris arrived, we heard Chris moving around quickly as if playing with something. It was a mouse. She would place a paw on its tail like a cat would in the movies. Then she would release it. The mouse ran for its life. Then she would grab the tail again. Finally, she got tired of playing. She then gave the mouse a right hook. That's the only way to explain it, and killed it instantly. This breed knows precisely where and how to strike its victims. She looked at us as if to say, "Clean up this mess," and walked away. On the negative side, from the time we got the dog, she had a misconception of what a bathroom area was. She thought that the whole house was one big bathroom and the yard was to be preserved immaculately. After a week of doing a mess on the carpet, she kept Jim and I disgustingly busy. So we decided to do something about it. I suggested using a system devised by B. Lydecker when training animals. Jim agreed. I held Chris's face in both hands and looked at her eye to eye. As I gave the command to keep the house clean, I also visualized it as clean. Then I said the yard is the place to go to the bathroom, visualizing a bush, a tree, the grass, whatever. I said, "We will give you 2 weeks to make the change. If you continue to mess up the house, we will have to get rid of you, and we're considering getting a cat." I gave that one command, and it worked. From that very moment, Chris never once made a mistake again. Even when we were both out and came in hours later, with her bladder ready to burst, she still waited till she got in the yard. One last thought about the dog. As a joke, when I wrote my weekly article for the parish bulletin, I mentioned that Father Jim and I now have a young girl living with us. Oh boy, I did not expect such a reaction. We received many calls and letters deploring the behavior of priests today. Most people were shocked and even scandalized. The next Sunday in the bulletin and from the pulpit, we had to explain that Chris was a girl puppy, and a cute one, mostly brown, with white dots and some black. A full integrated healthy dog. The tongues stopped waggling. While at St. Michael's Parish in the early 70s, I learned very clearly what change does to certain people. There were 6 parishioners, all active, well-known, and members of the parish council. My associate, we no longer use the word assistant, Father Jim Wysocki, and I endured the most vicious attacks from these same people who were determined to discourage us to the point of leaving the parish. They insulted us openly at meetings. At one point, I threw one lady out of the council meeting when she used some perverse and vulgar language against us. Their opposition did not diminish. My initial reaction was to tell them off, announce publicly from the pulpit the nature of their offensive behavior, and declare them officially removed from the list of registered parishioners, and wiped off the earth if possible. Of course, I did not do that. Father Jim and I prayed for direction. We wanted to maintain a proper Christian attitude toward them. I decided to use a technique which I had taught in the mind development classes to solve the problem with a positive attitude, by mentally inviting them to reconsider and help us build a Christian community together. Each evening, I sent them messages mentally telling them they were welcome to be on the same team, working in a united effort to accomplish our goals. Then I meditated on the goals we established at the council meetings. I envisioned a happy, active Christian community praising God, growing in a united spirit, and working in peaceful cooperation. I could see the whole parish forming a circle of unconditional love with the symbol of Christ in the center. Then I invited each of the 6 people to become a part of that group. I would say something like, "Please join us. You are very welcome. But if you choose otherwise, that's all right." I did not want to force them to change. At first, I pictured St. Michael's community all holding hands in the huge circle framed within a rectangular metal screen. After a few days, by itself, the image and the frame became circular. After about 10 days, with no deliberate action on my part, I began to hear music. Everyone started to move in rhythm. We were dancing. I kept asking the same 6 people, please join us, and to the others, make room for them, please. In the mind development course, we were recommended to repeat the respectful invitation each day for 21 days. As if on schedule, about 3 weeks later, one of the 6 came up to me and apologized for the rude treatment they gave me and my associate. He now wanted to work with us. He did indeed, and went on to become the council president. We accomplished a great deal together. His sister also was on the council and one of the 6 people who resisted change. She too felt bad about their negative and meaningless criticism of Father Jim and myself. She became open to new ideas and to our planned programs. Unfortunately, the other 4 remained adamant. They chose to leave us and sought another way of serving God. They preferred a community that was much more conservative and fundamental. They had my sincere blessing. In the end, we went on to accomplish our 5-year goals in 4 years. During the last 2 years of my pastorate at St. Michael's in Pontiac, I received permission from the Silva Method headquarters to teach senior citizens the entire $150 cost at that time course in mind development and stress control for only $5. That was the cost of the materials I passed out. My oldest student, Elsie, was 91 years old. Her mind was still clear and focused. About 300 seniors took the course. It was hard to imagine how beautiful, how attentive, and how active these elderly citizens were. They were a shining example to the young ones and to me. Chapter 33. Recapturing the Vision on Canvas. In 1975, my sister Rose was visiting us in Michigan. We were all at St. Michael's Parish in Pontiac, where I was pastor. With 4 of us together, Rose, Elizabeth, Tony, and myself, we began to reflect on the vision we shared years ago, in 1937 to be exact. We spent a great deal of time considering the vision. We knew that it belonged to the world beyond. Why did it happen to us? 4 kids who could not possibly understand the enormous impact of such a sight. Why did it last almost a full hour, giving us time to seal the vision forever in our memory? Did our future need this experience? We had a lot more questions than answers. What were those forms emanating light? Were they souls? Why were some of them ascending and others descending? They were all beautiful. Was there a distinction in color or value? Was that kind of thing going on every day, or was it done just for our benefit? Was it a display of Mary's role in the birth and death of the thousands who die and the thousands who are born every day? What was the purpose of it all? We became excited with the same fervor as when the vision actually took place. After becoming sufficiently motivated by our discussion of that unforgettable experience, we decided to go back to Mount Elliott Cemetery and revisit the place where we had witnessed the miraculous sight. When we entered the cemetery, we went immediately to the area near the very same window frame through which we saw that awesome display of heavenly objects ascending and descending. The house we once lived in was apparently abandoned, with the windows gone and the house ready to fall. It only looked like a skeleton of a house. As a matter of fact, 1 month after our visit there, the house was completely torn down. It was replaced by grass in a field. Standing together on cemetery soil, we said a prayer of thanksgiving. Then we prayed for a response. We thought maybe we would experience another vision, or perhaps a continuation of the previous one. Nothing happened. We took our time and prayed some more. Nothing. Instead of leaving and calling it a day, one of my sisters suggested that I paint what we saw. I did not think I could do justice to such an awesome task, but I agreed. I went to the car and got a sheet of paper. Then we began to remember, each of us, in the most graphic way possible, what we recalled. Although this was 40 years later, our memories served us well. We were in agreement on almost every item. There was never a disagreement, but some minor details were overlooked by one or the other of us. We left encouraged by the fact that we went back to the spot where it all happened. I bought a canvas, 30 by 40 inches, a good size because there was a lot to put on it. I slowly began to put it together. I did not work on it steadily. I normally paint fast, but I decided every so often to add a few brush strokes. After several months, it was nearly finished. The one thing lacking was the painting of the eyes of the Blessed Lady. How could I do the eyes of such a stunning and overpowering presence? I was up till 2 a.m. one evening. I did the eyes, then scratched them out, did them again, and took them out. I just couldn't do it. Finally, I left them blank and went to bed somewhat frustrated. The next evening, I dared to face the challenge once again. When I walked into the room where the painting was, I couldn't believe my eyes. The painting was finished, and the eyes of the beautiful lady were done. They were closed, and she gave the appearance of looking downward in complete humility. I smiled and said, "Thanks for rescuing me again. There's more." Several weeks after the painting was completed and framed, I happened to be reading the story of Our Lady of Fatima. The apparitions of the Mother of Jesus at Fatima are considered authentic by the Church. Believe me, it is not easy to get Church approval. The investigations to prove authenticity are extremely rigorous and complete to the last detail. The three children, Lucia, Jacinta, and Francisco, were playing in the area of the Cova da area when they were suddenly greeted by the Heavenly Lady, who was surrounded by light and clearly not of this world. She told them to see her on the 13th of each month, and on October 13th there would be a great miracle for all to see. It would also serve as proof of her visitations. The children faithfully kept their appointments with the lady at the Cova da area. Meantime, the story spread throughout their town and the surrounding villages that the Mother of Jesus was speaking to the three children. Their story was consistent and believable. Some men in authority, however, did not like the popularity and the attention these visits were receiving. It was ruining their small town, people trampling through their village by the thousands, all buying and selling and all the rest of it. They decided to detain the children on August 13th. 6 days later, on August 19th, the lady appeared to them and inquired why, as if she didn't know, they did not keep their word. The children told her that the authorities held them back on that day. The lady replied that since they held them back, she would also hold back some of the great miracle on October 13th. When that day arrived, over 70,000 people showed up, in bad weather no less. Although it was raining and the ground was wet and slushy, they were told to kneel. The people, expecting a miracle of some sort, were obedient. They knelt in the mud, all of them. The clouds suddenly parted, the rain stopped, the clouds very quickly parted, and the sun left its position and began to move unpredictably, like dancing in the sky. The observers were nearly frightened to death. Then the sun returned to its original position. When the people got up, they noticed their clothes were not wet. It was truly a miraculous experience for the villagers and their guests. While all the people were gazing at the phenomenon in the sky, the children saw what none of the others were aware of. There was a huge image of the beautiful Lady of Light that took up 1/3 of the sky. On her left was Saint Joseph, holding the child Jesus in one hand. On her right was a cross without a body on it. The three images took up the entire sky. I was absolutely stunned. I ran into the other room and saw my painting. It was exactly the same thing. It was hard to believe. In 1917, on the Sunday before Ascension Thursday, the three children were visited for the first time by the Mother of Jesus at Fatima. In October of that same year, they alone saw the miraculous images in the heavens, and in 1937, exactly 20 years later, on Ascension Thursday, we four children witnessed the very same thing. It was a thrilling moment. To think that we, as children, were privileged to see that which was perhaps reserved only for the innocent. A fabulous result did take place after the painting of the vision was completed. Several months afterwards, I asked for the 6th time what was the meaning of the vision we four children had. Finally, I was given the full meaning, with every detail explained. I was totally overwhelmed. It took time to sink into my little mind. I was strictly cautioned about sharing that information publicly, so, What I waited for many years to discover will have to remain in my heart until I am advised otherwise. Thank you for listening, and please join us every Sunday at 3 o'clock for our watch party as I premiere the next chapters of Father Jay's book.